Welcome to the 2026 Dialogue, a masterclass series by the HR Association of India. I'm Neha Jagnani, and today we are exploring a dimension of leadership that often operates quietly but decisively. It's not always visible on dashboards or org charts, yet it shapes choices, behaviors, and long term credibility, especially in moments of uncertainty. Our theme for today is the inner compass of leadership. To help us reflect on what truly guides leaders from within, we are joined by Manu Saigal. Manu is the country manager India at Hayes. With over 20 years of experience in business transformation, P&L leadership, and strategic workforce solutions. Known for her inclusive leadership and client-centric approach, she has led high-impact teams and navigated complex stakeholders ecosystem and driven sustainable growth across sector. A certified ITIL Foundation V3 and CoBit professional, Manu holds a degree in electronics and communications from Mysore University and a PGPMax from the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. Manu, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you. My pleasure being here. Thank you so much, Neha.
Sure. So to begin with, Manu, my first question for this theme is
Yeah.
when you think of an inner compass in leadership, what truly shapes it? The experiences, values, failures, or moments of choice?
Yeah. And I was just talking about it, not a very easy topic to talk about, but I'm attempting. So thank you so much for that. Talking about the inner compass in leadership, I don't think an inner compass in leadership comes from just one place. Experience gives you perspective, values give you a foundation, and the failures give you the humility. But for me, it is really the moments of uh, choice that reveal your inner compass. When I look back on my own journey, the moments that shaped me were um, they were not the ones with the big wins or the milestones. They were the situations where the easiest option wasn't the right one, where, I had to choose between the speed and integrity, choose between short term outcomes and the long term trust, or the numbers and the people. So those moments force you to slow down and ask yourself some very, very honest, hard hitting questions, I would say. What do I stand for? Um, uh, what am I willing to live with? What am I not willing to compromise on, even if it comes at a cost? Um, and yeah, so what I've learned over time is that your inner compass isn't really built in those calm and comfortable moments. It's tested when there is pressure, there's ambiguity, there's no perfect answer. When you know that whatever you choose will have consequences, and are you ready to face them? So, if I were to summarize, leadership shows up most clearly not in what we achieve, but in what we refuse to compromise. Yeah, so that I think would be the key in a compass there.
Sure, sure. Beautifully put and, of course, summarized for audiences. Thank you so much. I'll just quickly move to another question, which is in times of ambiguity or pressure, how can leaders stay anchored to their inner compass rather than being driven by external expectation or noise?
Yeah, so yeah, ambiguity and pressure are part of leadership. You can't avoid them. All
Right.
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 So what I have learned is that pressure doesn't usually make leaders unethical. It probably makes them unreflective at times. Especially if I were to talk about my industry, in the recruitment and talent industry, especially, noise is constant. The markets shift, the targets change, the expectations come from every direction, right? And if you are not careful, you start reacting to the noise rather than leading from conviction. So for me, staying anchored, starts with learning to distinguish between the signal and the noise. And if I were to put it that way, the signal is your the long-term vision and your commitment to people. Noise is a temporary, maybe pressure of quarterly targets or your short-term market fluctuations or some external opinions or maybe some high potential uh, talent attrition or things like that. Those are noises. Those are temporary, but signal is your long term vision, and that's where pausing becomes a real leadership superpower. I often think about a simple decision making analogy: the hat, the haircut, and the tattoos. Um, and I read about it somewhere, and I really loved it. So I keep using it now. So some decisions I like are like your hats. You can try them on and you can change them very easily. You don't like the decision, you change it, right? Some are like your haircuts. You get a haircut, you don't like it. It will take some time to grow. But there would be certain consequences. You will not like it for a short while, but over a period of time, a little bit here and there, it will grow. It's not permanent. So they're like your haircuts. And then there are decisions like tattoo. Those require much deeper thought, be it in work, be it in leadership, be it in relationship, like having a child. You know, once a child is born, you can't reverse it. I think in the high pressure moments, leaders tend to treat every decision like a tattoo. The pause helps you step back and ask, what kind of decision is this really? That clarity alone quiets a lot of unnecessary noise around you. And before reacting, I try to ask myself, does this decision reflect the leader I want to be remembered as? Or am I just solving a temporary discomfort? When you're anchored in your why, the how becomes much clearer. The inner compass, speaks very quietly, and that's the essence of it. And leadership is all about being intentional enough to hear it, especially when the world is so full of noise, or I would say the world around you is so loud, and the inner compass is quiet. So you have to be very intentional to keep going back to it and keep listening to it. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much. Truly thought-provoking, Manu, and effortlessly put, especially how you started with how pressure actually makes the leaders unreflective,
Yeah.
in certain situations, and you tend to react to the noise. It's very important to look at the signal versus the noise, wherein the signal kind of gives you the long-term
Yeah.
vision, commitment, and where noise is concerned, you'll be seeing a lot of temporary pressure, short-term fluctuations that can really influence you to take those decisions. So it's that pause, which becomes really critical. And love the theory of hats, haircut, and tattoos as well.
Yeah.
And of course, to end with, you have to ask yourself a questions before making any decision. Is this the kind of leader that I want to be? So thank you so much for that wonderful answer. My next question, Manu, is have you seen moments where leaders lose touch with their inner compass, and what usually causes that drift?
Yeah, obviously, of course. Um, I have seen it, and often in very, very capable or very intentioned leaders. I think what is important to understand is that the drift usually happens very slowly. It's not done all at once. It's rarely that one big decision. It's actually a series of those small shifts that gradually pull a leader away from the inner compass. And one common cause is when the leaders start prioritizing optics over impact, when the focus shifts too heavily to the external validation, the titles, the applause, or how things look. So the leaders stop listening to their gut, and they start managing the perception instead. Um, Another major cause is the survival mode. When leaders are overwhelmed, constantly under pressure, they stop reflecting and start reacting. In that state, the role becomes louder than the person. That's usually when the drifts begin. Not because the values disappear, but because there's no space left or there's no space left to reconnect with them. You need that time to reconnect, and the time isn't there. So you lose your way because you've stopped looking at the map. You're too busy, just trying to keep that boat afloat. And I think over time, small compromises begin to feel normal, and the decisions start to feel rushed and disconnected from the leader once you aspired to be. Right? So what I have learned is that losing touch from your inner compass isn't a failure of values. It's often a failure of that pause that is required, often a failure of perception and a honest self-reflection. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. So, what really causes that drift is when you start prioritizing optics over impact. Then there is when you
Yep.
stop listening, being constantly on survival mode. And then, of course, when you start to feel that those small compromises are actually very normal. So, it's very important that you take the pause. You don't carry it away with the noise, as you rightly mentioned in the previous answer. It's more about coming back to those signals
Yeah.
and practicing that pause that can actually keep you anchored to the inner compass. So thank you so much. My next question, Manu, is how does a strong inner compass influence the way leaders make people decisions, especially when the
Mhm.
choices are uncomfortable or unpopular?
Yeah. I think in leadership, people decisions are the ultimate test of your inner compass. When decisions are uh, easy, or when the decisions are popular, almost anyone can look like a good leader. But when the choices are uncomfortable, when they affect the careers, when they affect the livelihoods or a long-standing relationship, that's when your internal guide really matters. A strong inner compass shifts you from seeking popularity to seeking fairness and clarity. So you stop asking questions, how will this be received? But you start asking questions like, is this the right and responsible decision? So unpopular decisions, like especially when it comes to people, um, like restructuring or performance exits, they're very heavy. But when you are anchored and when you handle them with empathy and transparency, you take the time to explain why, even when it is very difficult. And over time, you also realize that being nice and being kind are not the same thing. Being nice avoids discomfort, but being kind means being honest and doing what's right for the health of the organization, even if it is the hardest conversation you will have all week. So that's how I would like to put it. And when leaders act from that place, people may not always agree with the decision, which is a fact, but they can trust that the intent behind it is right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the internal guide matters, as you rightly said. It's instead of shifting that mindset from how my decision is going to be perceived, I should rather ask myself, is this the right way to go about this? And of course, the very differentiation between being kind and being nice is really out there. It's important how honest you are in your approach. That
Yeah.
makes lasting impact. So this brings us to the last question for today, Manu, which is for leaders who feel disconnected or uncertain today. What practices can help them rebuild clarity, self-trust, and direction from within?
Yeah. I think first, I think it's important to say this. Feeling disconnected doesn't mean something is wrong with you as a leader. What it actually means is most often that you have been moving too fast for too long. So, the first step in my experience is to embrace the silence. We are so overscheduled and we are so overstimulated that we have almost drowned in our own inner voice. So I encourage the leaders to start with what I call the radical reflection. Every day, even 15 minutes a day, with just no devices, no agenda, no thoughts, just your thinking. You know, that small pause can move you out of um, a reaction mode, and you get back into the awareness mode. I often think of this as a retuning of an instrument. If you play guitar, you would know. It's not that it is broken, so nothing is broken. You're just slightly out of alignment, and a small intentional adjustment can bring that clarity and that balance back. So that's how I would look at it. The second practice is revisiting your defining moments, and it's a very, very powerful thing to do. I Write down 3 times in your career when you felt most proud of your leadership. Just ask those questions. What values were present then? What was I honoring? And those answers are usually very, very, very revealing. And that kind of, those are those defining moments that can help again. So rebuilding self-trust also comes from making small promises to yourself, and of course keeping those promises, of course. And confidence doesn't return all at once. It grows through consistency. So consistency is the key. And to close it, I think clarity doesn't come from the mountaintop moment. It comes from returning to your core truths one day at a time. And when leaders, reconnect with that, the direction tends to flow naturally. So those are some of the pieces, some of the things that I would recommend the leaders to reflect on. That's worked for me. Hopefully, can work for someone else as well.
Sure, sure. So just to summarize, Manu, there is embracing the silence, there is revisiting your defining moments, there is consistency and clarity, which is the need of the hour if you feel uncertain today. So thank you so much for bringing your perspectives. This brings us to the end of the masterclass. On behalf of HRAI, thank you for always sharing your grounded perspectives. It really added value to this conversation, and you have actually reinforced an important truth today, which is strategies may evolve, but leadership, which is strongly anchored in the inner compass, it creates a lot of value, integrity, and qualities that can have much more lasting impact. So, thank you so much for your thoughts today.
Thank you so much for having me here, Neha. Always a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Looking forward to more
Thank you.
interactions.
Thank you. Bye bye.